Have you ever felt a burning pain from disrespect at work, in relationships, or among so-called friends? What if I told you that every instance of disrespect you have endured quietly stole your strength? In this video, we will uncover how to eradicate disrespect. We will approach it with kindness, not patience, but with the cold, calculating wisdom of Machiavelli, with a dominance that poses danger and strategy. Disrespect is never random. It can be cloaked in humor, veiled with sarcasm, or hidden behind politeness. But rest assured, it is always intentional. People do not show disrespect by accident. They do it to gauge your reaction, to test how far they can go, to see if your silence gives them permission to go further next time. Most do not understand that disrespect is not an emotional impulse, but a strategic move. It is the starting step in a larger game of domination. If you take it as a harmless act or leave it unanswered, you have already lost. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. In the power games of Florence, disrespect was a subtle way to declare war. One cutting remark in the square could signal to others that your reputation was ripe for undermining. One raised eyebrow in the council chamber could mean the difference between influence and isolation. But the modern world has made this weapon more subtle, more dangerous. It no longer comes with a sword and a smirk. A passive-aggressive joke, a refusal to acknowledge your authority, is a slow erosion of your presence in the room. These are not social blunders. They are calculated threats. Imagine when a subordinate interrupts you in a meeting. They are not being careless. They are announcing to the room that you can be interrupted. When a friend mocks your ambitions under the guise of humor, they are not playing. They are probing for weakness. And when partners gnaw at your boundaries and expect you to accommodate them, they are not ignorant. They are setting the standard. In Machiavelli's mind, every action is political, even personal relationships, especially personal relationships. Power is not just what you have, but what others believe you will defend. And once they believe you will not defend your dignity, your time, or your values, that belief spreads like poison. Disrespect, once tolerated, multiplies and rarely stays where it began. If one person is allowed to mock you without consequences, others will follow suit. Why? Because your response sets the rules. Your silence is a green light. Your nervous laughter is capitulation. Your diplomatic explanation signals that you fear conflict more than humiliation. People do not respect kindness. They respect consequences. They respect clarity. And most importantly, they respect cost. Now, some will tell you that it is not that serious. But here before you is the shield of disrespect. Relax. Do not take it personally. You are too sensitive. These phrases are not sincere. These are tricks designed to disarm you, allowing them to act with impunity. The more you accept this language, the more you teach others that it is acceptable to mock you and gradually belittle you. And here, your inner Machiavelli must come into play. We must learn to decode these signals, not from an emotional standpoint, but from a strategic one. Every time someone dismisses your ideas, interrupts you, forgets your contributions, or mocks your efforts, it is not a mistake. It is a move, a maneuver in the hierarchy they are trying to dominate. Even if they pretend not to aspire to the top, they do not want to defeat you directly, as that would be too costly. They want to weaken you socially and psychologically until you diminish yourself, until you begin to doubt your worth, until others see you as less than you truly are. This is the genius of disrespect. It rarely appears as a threat, but quietly rewrites the rules of interaction. What was once unacceptable becomes the norm. What was once offensive becomes amusing, and what was once a trait becomes a footstool. Machiavelli wrote that a wise ruler should never allow themselves to be disrespectfully overlooked, for lost respect is rarely regained. The key is to learn to see what others do not notice. When someone treats you carelessly, they are asking a question. What will happen if I act this way? And your reaction becomes the answer they will share with others. There are those who gently test you to understand whether you bite back, defend your space, whether you are a person with boundaries or a doormat with a smile. Mercy is a beautiful virtue when you wield a sword. But in the case of disrespect, mercy is not noble. It is dangerous. Because when you show mercy to those who have insulted you, belittled you, or tested your dignity, what you consider forgiveness, they perceive as weakness. And in the mind of your opponent, weakness is nothing but an open invitation. Machiavelli saw this time and again. Those who forgive too easily after disrespect do not earn admiration. They evoke disdain. Why? Because people only value what has worth. And when your dignity is cheap, they treat it as worthless. You give them leeway, and they take it as permission. There is an illusion, especially among kind people, that ignoring an insult means rising above it. That if you pretend not to notice the disrespect, you somehow remain untouched. But Machiavelli knew better. He understood human nature at its core. People are immoral. They are opportunists. They observe, they study, and when they notice that there are no consequences for violating your boundaries, they begin to breach them more frequently and boldly. You may think you are maintaining peace by doing this, but in reality, you are giving permission. What you allow others to do to you without consequences, and sometimes even apologize for the awkwardness of their actions, teaches them that such behavior is acceptable. Disrespect that goes unpunished eventually escalates into outright mockery, ranging from light sarcasm to open challenges. When you realize how far this has gone, the damage is done not only to your reputation, but also to how others perceive your authority. In such moments, your compassion is not seen as emotional strength, but rather as a lack of inner resolve, as if you are afraid to stand up for your rights, afraid to draw a line, afraid to offend those who do not hesitate to offend you. Here, the psychology of Machiavelli contrasts with the teachings of saints and philosophers, as if in politics, war, or everyday human interactions. Compassion without strength is futile. If people believe they can treat you disrespectfully without any change in dynamics, they will not only continue to do so, but will also escalate their actions. They learn more from your silence than from your words. Machiavelli wrote that cruelty, when used wisely, can be a tool for order. Likewise, your response to disrespect should be measured but firm. You do not need to fall into rage or shout, but you must clearly and unequivocally convey that your patience is not limitless. Even a simple but precise response can change the situation. A cold stare, a firm remark, withdrawal of access, a calm, strategic establishment of boundaries. Clarity is more important than drama. You are not someone to be disrespected without consequences. You are not someone who accepts crumbs for the sake of peace. You are not a safe space for those who consider themselves above you. The cruelest part of compassion is that it often turns against the most compassionate. Those you have forgiven tell others about your soft heart, but not out of respect. They boast about it, joke about it, and make it clear to others that they can push you around. Because no matter how kind your intentions may be, the outcome remains the same. People who once showed disrespect and faced no consequences will do so again, and in a harsher form. Those who observe from the sidelines will decide that the rules have changed. If someone violates your respect and you respond with silence, you teach them that you do not value yourself enough to defend it. You may not say it aloud, but your passivity speaks for itself. And here lies the cruel irony. The more patient you are with disrespect, the more disrespect you receive. Your restraint does not inspire change. It instills confidence, but not in you. Machiavelli did not advocate for cruelty for the sake of pleasure. He recommended it for clarity, to create a standard from which others can learn, to establish order through strength rather than sentimentality. Because when one person is punished wisely, 10 others remain in line. When one is forgiven thoughtlessly, 10 others will try their luck. There are moments when silence is wisdom, but in cases of disrespect, silence turns into capitulation, and not just any capitulation, but one that unfolds before an audience. Machiavelli understood the theater of power. He knew that every insult, every slight, every challenge left unanswered grows not in silence, but in the minds of observers. You are not just being disrespected, you are being watched, and in the political arena, in the office, or even in your own home, observation shapes reality. Disrespect cannot be defeated in private settings. It must be destroyed in the presence of witnesses, because respect is not earned behind closed doors. It is earned where others can see what happens to those who step out of line. People do not learn from your intentions. They learn from your reactions, especially those that unfold in public. That is why Machiavelli warns, if someone openly disrespects you, do not respond in private. Do not pull them aside. Do not explain. You must act where eyes are watching. But here is where many go wrong. They explode. They overreact. They try to emotionally, verbally, socially destroy their enemy in a fit of passion, and in doing so, they lose what Machiavelli valued above all: control, precision, that is everything. Your reaction should not be wild. It should be cold, surgical, intentional, because anything less makes you unstable, and instability weakens your power of fear. Think of it this way. Disrespect is a poison introduced into the room here with a smirk, there with a joke at your expense. It spreads slowly, becoming the norm. If you wait too long, it becomes part of your identity. You become the one who can be teased, the one who can be challenged without consequences. But if you interrupt this early and publicly, you restore clarity and hierarchy. Timing is key. You do not react instantly. You let it register. You allow the disrespect to linger or believe it has gone unpunished for a moment. When you respond, it strikes harder because it is not emotional, but calculated. When you strike, you do so with purpose. You humiliate them not with fury, but with intellect. You expose their pettiness and reveal their disrespect before the same audience that witnessed the insult, and in doing so, you turn their move against them. Machiavelli believed that punishment, when necessary, should be memorable, not excessive, not bloody, but definitive, something that speaks to others. This is the line. Cross it. And your dignity ends where his did, because people do not remember long speeches. They remember spectacle. They remember the man who tried to mark the prince and never appeared again. This does not mean you destroy everyone who disrespects you. That would be ineffective. It means you choose the right moment, the right person, the right response. You inflict pain not physically, but reputationally. Disrespect is a presentation, and your response should reflect that. In silence lies strength, but only after a correction has been made. When you have already acted, when you have accurately placed the blame, then you can remain silent. This silence becomes louder than any insult. It transforms into a reminder, an echo, a signal that you do not need to explain yourself twice. Most people perceive disrespect as a personal matter. They believe that stern conversations or passive distancing will solve the problem. But disrespect thrives in the shadows. It hides behind closed doors, multiplies in ambiguity, and is only killed by light, exposure, public consequences. The knowledge that if someone crosses you, they are not just facing your disapproval. They will lose their standing, lose face, and everyone will see it. In a world where reputation reigns, your power diminishes or dies not because of your emotions, but because of your ability to manage perception. Therefore, public disrespect requires a public response. Not always loud, not always aggressive, not always obvious. When you allow an insult to pass without visible correction, you teach others to aim higher next time. And when they see that your silence means safety, they begin to forget who you are. Respect does not beg, it is not pleaded for, and it is not hoped for. Respect commands, and to command respect, you must become someone who is feared to offend. Not necessarily through violence, not through loud words or open threats, but through presence, through consequences, through a quiet understanding that crossing you will come at a cost. Machiavelli described that it is better to be feared than loved. If you cannot be both, because fear is reliable, love is conditional. Respect born of fear does not mean you become cruel. It means you become dangerous in a subtle way. It means that people know you are capable of defending your worth and your dignity in such a way that it will not be forgotten. The world respects strength, and strength is simply the ability to create consequences. When people know that you can complicate their lives if they step on your name, they act cautiously. But when you are perceived as harmless, polite, always accommodating, always gentle, you are considered expendable. Your time is wasted, your words are dismissed, your power dissolves. The modern lie is that kindness will lead to respect, but Machiavelli would call this a delusion. People do not admire those who are always available, always agreeable, always forgiving. They admire those who control their time, guard their presence, and make others earn their favor, because what is rare is respected, and what is dangerous instills fear in silence. So how do you become dangerous? Start by refusing to be easily accessible. Be purpose-driven within your boundaries. Let people feel that when they cross a line with you, even subtly, they lose access, opportunities, or trust. You do not always need to speak. Your distance is enough. Your absence communicates louder than your words. You become dangerous when people understand that they will not always receive a response from you, but when it does come, it is decisive. When your silence is not submission, but calculation. When you speak precisely and correct with cold clarity, you do not react emotionally. You react strategically. There is a difference between instilling fear and being unpredictable. Machiavelli never advised chaos. He advises predictability with one condition. People must know exactly what provokes your response. When someone insults you and nothing happens, they become bolder. But when someone insults you and your response is clever, unexpected, and sharp, it cuts into their memory. This creates an aura of danger, not rage, but discipline. Your words must matter. You do not bluff. You do not shout. You build a reputation that speaks for you even when you are not in the room. You are not the loudest. You are not the most aggressive. But you are the one no one wants to risk crossing, because they have already seen or heard what happens when someone does. Danger also means you have power in areas that others depend on. Perhaps it is your influence, your knowledge, your control over outcomes, or perhaps it is your emotional detachment, the fact that you are not afraid to walk away. People fear losing what they depend on. If they rely on your kindness, your skills, your closeness, Then you hold the cards in your hands. You become not just a person, but a calculation. People respect those who are not afraid of loss, who do not beg for belonging, who walk away from disrespect without a word and never return the same. You become someone who does not chase approval, but makes others earn yours. You turn the game around. You make others think carefully about their words. You make them prepare before approaching you. You become a test of the unpredictable, and in that danger, there is a certain elegance. It is not about threats. It is not about noise. It is about self-respect displayed outwardly. You carry yourself as one who has experienced betrayal, endured disrespect, and become sharper, not softer. People sense when you are unyielding, when you do not tolerate foolishness, when you say little but observe everything. The wisdom of Machiavelli lies not in being invulnerable at all times, but in remaining untouchable at the right moments. It is about creating an image that whispers, "If you cross the line, it will cost you more than it will cost me." That is power. It is the art of commanding respect, and that is why a dangerous person never asks for it. Disrespect is not just an insult. It is an invasion. It is a test, a signal that someone considers your boundaries negotiable. If you allow this once, you silently give permission to continue. Machiavelli did not live in a world of comfort. He lived in a world of power. He understood that every slight, every word, every glance was part of a game where only the sharpest survived. And in this game, forgiveness is not always a virtue. Silence is not always strength, and tolerance is not always wisdom. You destroy not with disrespect or pleas, but with better relations and by creating consequences. You do not fix this with emotions. You dismantle it with clarity, in a cold, calm, public, and surgical manner. You remind the world that you are not to be trifled with, that crossing paths with you leaves a mark, that dignity is not just your right, it is your weapon. Become someone they cannot afford to insult. Let your presence speak louder than your explanations, and let every act of disrespect be met not with tears or words, but with strategy. This is not cruelty. It is survival in a world that feeds on the weak and tests the strong. In Machiavelli's eyes, there is no greater injustice than allowing others to redefine your worth. So do not explain yourself. Do not beg. Do not lower yourself. Stand firm, correct, command, and let them fear even the thought of disrespecting you again.